Use this to acquire it. With that, Eugene slipped out of the auction house, melting back into the dark, moon-drenched alley. He raised the communicator to his lips. Location? The voice on the other end directed him north, to a shop named Rafflesia. That was the target's destination. Inside Rafflesia, the air was heavy with cloying perfume and raucous laughter. It was a den of succubi, serving intoxicating drinks to their mortal clientele, a perfect portrait of decadence. Eugene took a seat, and a succubus instantly materialized with a drink. From the shadows of his hood, his eyes scanned the room. There was no sign of Ide. He turned to the succubus and asked bluntly, "Where can a man find his dreams here?" She offered him a sly, knowing grin, her tongue darting out to wet her lips. "You seem to be in quite a hurry," she purred, leaning in so close he could feel her warmth. Her voice was a predatory whisper. "What an adorable little customer. Is this your first time?" She informed him that the private chambers for dreaming were located in the basement. "But you should try this first," she insisted, pouring a shimmering golden liquor into his mug. She promised it would help him be more honest with his desire. Eugene shoved the bottle aside. "I have no need for liquid courage," he stated coldly. "Just show me the way." A flashback to earlier commenced. The rules of the auction were simple, designed to ensure complete anonymity. All bidders were escorted to private, isolated rooms. No one would ever know the identity of who they were bidding against. An attendant had explained the console's 3 buttons: the center to place a bid, the right to raise the price, and the left to summon assistance. With the explanation concluded, the attendant had left them in solitude within the dimly lit room. Gargus had looked at him, a confused expression on his face. "I thought you said you weren't interested." Eugene had simply stated that he was only there to observe. Partly out of curiosity and partly to pass the time, he had let the auction proceed while Gargus fumed in anxious anticipation for his prize. Back in the present, Eugene was seated in a restaurant adjoining to the succubus den, where a demonic waiter approached to ask if his dream had been a pleasant one. With a dismissive gesture, Eugene waved him off. "Bring me your finest dish, with extra meat." He then began to eat, effortlessly blending in with the other patrons. Every one of his senses was stretched, taut, on high alert as he waited for the opportune moment. And then he felt it, a familiar, pathetic presence seeping into the room. His eyes snapped up, his chewing ceased. He was here. Across the hall, he spotted his target, a hooded figure flanked by 2 grotesque, goblin-like demons. They were escorting him through the dining area when the hood fell away, revealing a pale, haggard face dominated by sunken, haunted eyes. There was no mistaking him. His mind flashed back again. The auctioneer had dismissed the fragment as nothing more than an unidentified metal. It was a bothersome item, he claimed, one that hadn't sold in a very long time. Eugene had immediately noticed the subtle shift in his tone. He was deliberately trying to undersell it. It was as if he were daring the crowd to overlook its true hidden value. The man explained it had been unearthed deep within the demon world. He claimed that when struck by moonlight, it emitted a beautiful glow, but insisted that was its only use, as it was too hard to process and couldn't conduct mana. He'd even joked that it would make a fine decoration for a bedroom window, before setting the opening bid at a paltry 1 million sell with a dismissive air. The very instant the bid was announced, Eugene's eyes had narrowed into calculating slits. Without a single moment of hesitation, his hand had shot out to slam the bid button. Shortly after, a masked attendant delivered a small, unassuming box, the item for which you placed the winning bid. The question came at once: why did you purchase something so utterly useless? The query was posed just as Eugene opened it. Gazing upon the softly glowing fragment, Eugene was overcome with certainty. There was no doubt at all. This is a fragment of the Moonlight Sword. His mind raced. They had discovered this in the exact same area where his party first found the blade 300 years ago. Could Vermouth have truly brought it all the way back to this place, just to seal it away? The Moonlight Sword was an entity far too dangerous to exist freely. That ominous blade answered only to Vermouth, and it brought nothing but absolute destruction every single time it was drawn from its sheath. Surfaced. Perhaps sealing it away wasn't enough for Vermouth. Perhaps he had shattered it too. Back in the present, Eugene now stood before the imposing entrance to Rafflesia. This is the place, he thought, adjusting his hood before taking a decisive step forward. His path was immediately blocked by 2 imposing demons dressed in sharp, tailored suits. "Are you a customer?" one of them growled. Eugene regarded them with cold, unwavering detachment. It was the first time he'd been this close to a demon since his reincarnation. In his past life, they'd be nothing but ash before their eyes could even meet his. But this new reality is a game where the one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides their true power until the perfect moment. He maintained his composure and stated simply, "I'd like to enter." The bouncer informed him the basic entry fee was a steep 2 million sell. The price, he added, would change based on the dream he wished to experience. He then asked if he still wanted to go inside. Without a word, Eugene produced 2 1 million sell notes and handed them over. "Enjoy your time," the bouncer grunted, offering a perfunctory bow as they parted to let him pass. Inside, the same succubus from before approached him, a teasing smile dancing on her lips. "Aha! So you were too embarrassed to say what you wanted out there," she whispered, her voice a suggestive purr. "Shall we find a bedroom?" She then turned, leading him down a long, dimly lit hallway, glancing back to observe his feigned head. "It's a bit scary," Eugene said, perfectly embodying the role of a nervous, wide-eyed first-timer. The succubus reassured him not to worry, promising that he would merely feel a little tired tomorrow. Eugene's eyes, however, he scans the entire layout, committing every detail to memory. He has seen all he needs to. My business here is concluded. He halts her advance. His entire charade vanishes without a trace. I sleep only in my own bed. This is for the beverage. He presses a high-denomination bill into her palm. You can keep the rest. The succubus is utterly bewildered, gaping at the currency in her hand with wide, uncomprehending eyes. What in the world is wrong with him? Where's the way out? Eugene demanded, his voice cold and direct. The flustered succubus gestured down a corridor, stammering, I'll guide you. There's a passage that connects to a nearby restaurant, she explained. The supposed heir of the legendary Lionheart name, now just a complete wreck, barely able to stand without the support of demons. For Eugene, this sight was more than just a disgrace, it was a profound betrayal. A searing, white-hot rage began to boil within him. How could the firstborn of the Lionheart clan not only cavort with succubi but now also accept aid from common demons? He watched in disgust as the two fiends steered his brother through the eatery and out a rear exit. Ended. Eugene rose from his table, his meal completely forgotten, his gaze locked onto his quarry as he followed. He trailed them out into the shadowy streets of Bolero Alley. Beneath the pale glow of the moon, the trio began to ascend a flight of stairs. They remained completely oblivious to the fact they were being stalked. Eugene maintained his distance, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Where could they be taking him? He blended seamlessly into the darkness, silently tailing them through the labyrinth of empty alleyways. At last, they came to a halt. They guided the stumbling figure up the steps of an unremarkable, unmarked structure. With a sudden burst of speed, Eugene moved to head them off, his cloak billowing behind him. He landed without a sound in a darkened corner just ahead, but as he rounded it, he found his way obstructed. 3 hulking thugs stood in his path, their expressions radiating hostility. The one positioned in the center crossed his enormous arms and growled, Hey kid. His face was a mask of pure aggression as he snarled, This ain't a shop, scram. Eugene gazed down at them, entirely unfazed. Then what is this place? He inquired, his voice laced with a dangerous calm. The thug clearly didn't appreciate his tone. He lunged forward, seizing Eugene by the collar. I said, get lost, he repeated, his voice a low threat. You think this is a joke? In a flash, Eugene's hand shot up, clamping around the thug's wrist with a grip like solid iron. The man's arm was locked in place, completely immobilized. A faint smirk touched Eugene's lips as he replied, It certainly sounds like you are. The face contorted with a mixture of shock and rage. He attempted to wrench his arm free, but it was like trying to shift a mountain. Before he could process the situation, Eugene swung. His fist connected with a sickening crunch, lifting the massive man clean off his feet. He crashed to the ground with a heavy thud, completely unconscious. The other 2 thugs could only stare in disbelief for a fraction of a second. Before their shock morphed into unbridled fury, one of them roared, drawing a sword, I'm gonna kill you. Eugene remained perfectly silent, hooded figure facing down 2 armed and enraged men. The thug with the knife lunged forward, aiming for a quick, decisive strike. Simultaneously, his companion charged, swinging his sword with every ounce of his strength. They assaulted him from both flanks, a pincer maneuver designed to overwhelm any ordinary person. But Eugene was anything but normal. He moved a fluid, impossible grace. This is the truth. The one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides. He weaved between their strikes, deflecting their very blades with his bare hands. In a flash of motion, he completely dismantled their offense, sending them both crashing to the unforgiving ground. With the entire skirmish over in mere seconds, he strode over to the last conscious thug and placed his boot firmly on the man's head. You guys, he said, his voice laced with pure annoyance, are now going to tell me, what is this den? He muttered, surveying the scene. What? They're all out cold? Pathetic? He punctuated the thought with a contemptuous nudge of a thug's head with his boot. Realizing it would be far quicker to investigate himself, he strode past the unconscious forms cluttering the narrow alleyway. He reached the door they'd been guarding and, without so much as a pause, shattered it into 1,000 splinters with one powerful kick, stepping through the wreckage. The building's interior was a gloomy pit, the air thick with a cloyingly sweet-smelling smoke that hung heavy in the darkness. He identified the scent instantly. Narcotics. A wave of disgust washed over him. He understood his brother needed a release, but this was just pitiful. Within the den, a wolf-like beastman dressed in an expensive suit shot to his feet, his finger trembling as he pointed it. Who in the world are you? The beastman, obviously the ringleader, glared with pure fury. How did you get past my men? I had guards posted right outside. Eugene cracked his knuckles, a dark, menacing grin spreading across his lips. Well now, he began, his voice dripping with venomous sarcasm. A human, a beastman, and a demon, all sharing a pipe together. Isn't that just a heartwarming picture of interspecies cooperation? The beastman let out a furious roar, his patience completely shredded. Take care of this punk, he bellowed to his underlings. His crew, a motley collection of humans and demons, charged forward blindly. Eugene merely lifted his hands, gathering brilliant blue mana into 2 spheres. He then unleashed the concentrated energy in a devastating blast that sent every single one of them hurtling through the air, clearing the room in a flash. He stared down at the groaning figures on the floor. Where is Ayad? The beastman, blood trickling from his lips, could only manage to Fine, stay silent, Eugene said, his hand moving to the hilt of his blade. The path of one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides many pathetic secrets, and I'll uncover this one myself. At the sight, the beastmen and the few remaining conscious demons recoiled in absolute terror. Eugene drew his sword, and it immediately flared to life with a brilliant light. The blade pulsed with the pure light of his mana. He raised it high above his head before bringing it down with catastrophic force, unleashing a massive shockwave of energy. The blast tore through the floor and shattered the walls, its power ripping upwards and completely obliterating the room on the level directly above. Eugene stood over the cowering beastman, his glowing sword resting casually on his shoulder. I've already checked the first floor and the second floor. He's not on either, he stated calmly. That only leaves one place. He then pointed a hand towards the ruined ceiling. The third level. A focused beam of pure mana shot from his fingertip, blasting a clean hole straight through what remained of the ceiling. He expertly used the force of the concussive blast to propel himself upwards, soaring effortlessly through the falling debris. He landed with perfect balance on the third floor, surrounded by rubble. His senses immediately confirmed his suspicion. Only a single room remained on this level, and he knew with absolute certainty that Ayad was inside it. The door to that room was cracked, leaking a foul, dark energy into the air. It stained the atmosphere like black smoke. The moment he registered the malevolent power, a formidable wave of it erupted from the room. He quickly produced the fragment of the moonlight sword just as a massive torrent of crimson and black energy roared directly toward him. It was undeniably a killing blow, a blast of unadulterated dark magic. Yet, just as it was about to make contact, the small crystal in his hand flared to life. The fragment of the moonlight sword absorbed the entire attack with ease, the sinister energy completely vanishing into its crystalline structure. A faint smirk touched Eugene's lips. This little relic still works like a charm, even in pieces. Its unique property of nullifying dark magic was clearly still perfectly intact. He gazed at the now silent doorway, his smirk slowly fading. That was unmistakably dark magic. And behind the splintered remains of the door, a cloaked figure clutching a skull-topped staff stared back in utter disbelief. Wondering what kind of defense could have possibly nullified such a spell. Meanwhile, Eugene clenched his fist, his entire body trembling with rage. Recalled the Patriarch's solemn warning. A Lionheart must never, under any circumstances, get involved with dark magic. And yet, here and now, his very own brother, a direct descendant of the Great Vermouth, was dabbling in the forbidden arts. He called out to the shadowy figure in the darkness. Listen closely, he warns. I'll give you one chance to flee. But his face twists into a mask of raw fury, his eyes igniting with the brilliant white light of his lineage. The window for questions has slammed shut. This is no longer a rescue mission for a lost sibling. This is a reckoning, a cleansing of the Lionheart name with a torrent of sanctified flame. A massive wave of pure mana explodes from Eugene, a shockwave so potent it rattles the building to its core, obliterating the final vestiges of dark magic. And there, at the epicenter, stands Eugene, his illusionary facade incinerated, his form cloaked in the iconic white flame of the Lionheart clan. The dark mage can only gape in abject horror. That incredible power, those white flames flickering like a lion's majestic mane. It dawns on him with sickening dread who stands before him. Yet, he is not alone. His two demonic bodyguards move to shield their master. Their colossal frames, their fiendish nature barely restrained by the fabric of their formal suits. Crimson light smolders in their eyes with pure menace. A chilling, predatory smile plays on Eugene's lips. He recognizes them instantly. The very same two demons from before. With a nauseating crackle of warping bone, their hands morph into elongated, razor-edged claws. Eugene remains completely unfazed. He sinks into his combat stance, sword poised, the white flames spiraling around his form. His gaze is as unforgiving as cold steel. He isn't merely waiting, he's issuing a silent challenge to it. They foolishly accept, lunging forward in a dizzying blur. Eugene surges to meet them, his blade becoming a streak of brilliant light as he pivots into the vortex of their assault. He unleashes a cyclone of slashes, so swift the very air seems to rip and tear around him. The first demon has no time to utter a sound as the blades connect, its body instantly shredded by the tempest of steel. The second demon roars, a guttural sound of pure fury. It strikes with its unleashing a streak of crimson energy aimed directly for Eugene's throat. Eugene parries with contemptuous ease, shearing off the demon's claws in a shower of black ichor. He follows through with a punishing counterattack, impaling the demon before its brain can even process the pain. With the final demon before him, Eugene doesn't hesitate for a single moment. He closes the gap in a heartbeat, his hand clamping onto the demon's face. A vicious pulse of white flame erupts from his palm, instantly incinerating its head in a blinding flash of light. Its headless corpse collapses to the floor. Eugene stands amidst the carnage, his unwavering gaze locked on the terrified dark mage, who is now cowering in the corner. The last remnants of his glamour fade away, revealing his true face. The distinctive, messy white hair and piercing golden eyes of a true Lionheart. The dark mage stammers, his mind frantically trying to connect the dots, his eyes wide with absolute terror. He finally recognizes the monstrously gifted prodigy from the rumors. Eugene Lionheart, is that truly you? He now sees how the one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides their true nature. Eugene's eyes flare with raw power. Since you know my name, he snarls, step aside. Pure panic sets in. The mage scrambles backward, attempting to plead for a chance to explain, but it's utterly futile. He can see the cold, merciless killing intent burning in Eugene's eyes. Sheer desperation consumes him. Understanding he is trapped, he raises the skull atop it, his eyes blazing with a malevolent crimson light as he bellows. Perish! A formidable beam of dark magic erupts from the hurtling directly toward Eugene. Yet, Eugene doesn't so much as flinch. He merely raises his sword and cleaves the spell in two with a single, contemptuous slash. He closes the distance in an instant, a blur of motion faster than the eye could possibly track. The mage is utterly frozen by terror, cold sweat cascading down his face. He can't process it. This is his end. The cold, unyielding steel of Eugene's blade presses firmly against his throat. Do not move, Eugene commands, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Twitch, and I will sever your head. With the mage thoroughly subdued, Eugene finally scans the remainder of the room, and the sight sends a shard of ice through his veins. Upon a stone altar lies his brother, Iod, positioned at the very center of a glowing ritual circle. Just before him sits a golden chalice. Within the chalice, a pulsating, grotesque mass of flesh glows with a soft, ethereal blue light. That's a ritual chalice, he notes, before turning his cold gaze back to the mage. What is that inside? The terrified mage confesses it is a unicorn's heart. A unicorn's heart. A legendary ingredient that holds so much divine power. It is known as divine water. To use such a sacred object as a sacrifice in a dark ritual, its value is simply beyond measure. Eugene's eyes narrow. Are you attempting to forge a contract with a demon king? The mage frantically denies the accusation, insisting it's for a far lesser demon, a baron named Ulfr of Helmud. Who? Eugene presses. The mage hastily explains that Ulfr is an incubus, a mere subordinate of the Duchess Noir Jabella, the queen of the night witches. Noir Jabella. The name triggers a distant memory, a succubus he once knew 300 years ago. No demon king, certainly, but still powerful enough to hold the rank of duchess in the demonic realm. Eugene's voice drips with pure scorn. So, Iod wants to forge a pact with some pathetic incubus, a mere lackey of Noir Jabella? This is the grand story where he becomes strongest. Manhwa hides its pathetic nature behind a demon's contract? Is that it? He's sacrificing a unicorn, completely drugged and intoxicated out of his mind for times that asterisk? Am I comprehending this situation correctly? The mage collapses to his knees, pressing his forehead hard against the cold stone floor. It was at Sir Iod's explicit request. He shrieks. He wails that Iod provided, that he was in no position to reject an order from a direct heir of the Lionheart clan. Eugene scoffs. Oh, I'm sure you couldn't. You were like the eldest son of the prestigious Lionheart family, handing you a priceless artifact and begging you to broker a contract with your demonic master. He gestures dismissively at the groveling mage. If that contract had succeeded, you would have received a monumental surge in your own power. Eugene's face contorts into a mask of pure rage. It was your own avarice that so stop deflecting blame and seal your lips if you wish to keep your life. The mage trembles violently, silenced by the overwhelming force of Eugene's fury. His business with the mage concludes. Eugene turns and strides toward the altar where Iod lies unconscious. He gazes down at his brother's pathetic, drugged expression, a line of drool trickling from the corner of his mouth. An angry vein throbs on Eugene's temple. He draws back his arm and delivers a sharp, vicious slap across Iod's face. Iod's eyes fly open, a trickle of blood appearing on his mind reeling from the explosive shock. He pushes himself up, dazed and utterly disoriented, stammering. You? Eugene? Eugene, his golden eyes as cold and unforgiving as a winter storm. Have you finally returned to your senses, oh dear brother? The title is laced with nothing but profound disgust. Iod can only stare blankly, as the full, crushing weight of his disgraceful actions finally crashes down upon him. The searing sting of the slap, still fresh on his cheek. Iod stares up at his younger brother, his mind a chaotic fog of narcotics and abject terror. He stammers out the only question his panicked mind can form. Eugene! Why? Why are you here? Eugene's, I followed you. He begins to pace, his voice deceptively calm. You know, I heard you were going through a rough patch, so I tried to be understanding. Your life is a complete disaster, so I attempted to accept that you simply needed some time away. But then, he lunges, seizing Iod's face in a punishing grip, wrenching his head up to meet his gaze. His eyes burn with an icy fire. You do not get to meddle with dark magic. The words land like an indictment. As a direct descendant of the Lionheart clan, as the heir, you dared to try and forge a pact with demons and an incubus, of all things? Iodotez clutches his head, desperately trying to defend himself. That's not something I had any say in. Eugene has zero tolerance for his pathetic excuses. He delivers another brutal punch that snaps Iod's head back with a sickening crack. Iod crumples onto the altar, wailing in agony as Eugene looms over him, pointing an accusatory finger. Do you have the faintest idea what happens when you sign your name on a demonic contract? Your very soul becomes their property. If they command you to perish, you perish. If they command you to slaughter, you slaughter. Iodot trembles as his own blood drips down his face. Eugene is absolutely relentless. Did you honestly believe this was only your problem? If you became a wielder of dark arts, you would have brought shame upon our entire family. And that's not even the worst of it, Eugene roars. What if that fiend ordered you to eliminate our parents, our siblings, to plunder our family's sacred treasures? Iod desperately tries to reason. They told me have to obey every single command. I made a promise. Eugene explodes with contempt. A promise? With an incubus? Do you actually think demons are like dragons or elves? Pledges are meaningless to their kind. No need to follow every order, he mocks, his voice dripping with pure scorn. That's technically true, assuming you're willing to die just to defy them. He leans in close, his eyes hollow and haunting. But could you really do that? You, who couldn't even face reality, who had to run away into drink and delusion. The words strike home like a physical blow. Ayod hangs his head in shame, offering no reply. But then, something inside him fractures, and the humiliation twists into bitter resentment. You. Tears of blood and self-pity stream down his face as he finally erupts. What could you possibly know about any of this? How dare you humiliate me like this? A cruel, mocking smile spreads across Eugene's face. Oh, that's right, you have. Your own set of problems, is that it? Then by all means tell me, brother. The dam breaks. Ayod begins to ramble, pouring out 4 years of festering jealousy. You have no idea what it's like. Ever since you showed up, you've soaked up all the attention. He struggles to his knees, his voice cracking with emotion. As the adopted son, you received all of father's support. You don't know anything. Eugene just stares at him with sheer, unadulterated disbelief. You make it sound as if you were treated unfairly. He jabs a finger right in Ayod's face, ticking off the facts one by one. You received the exact same support I did. You inherited the white flame technique. You were given the opportunity to become the disciple of a magic tower master in a Roth, were you not? That's... Ayod sputters, the truth, as more pathetic tears stream down his face. Eugene's voice turns to absolute ice. Do you understand now? The reason I'm superior isn't because you were treated unfairly. It's because I was simply born better. As Ayod begins to whine that talent is something beyond his control, Eugene cuts him off. It's not just about talent. This isn't some tale where the weakling *** becomes strongest. Manhwa hides *** his true power. I was born better, **, and times I trained harder. Cyan and Seal are training in their hearts out back home while you're here in a Roth, getting wasted on delusions and cheap highs. His eyes begin to glow with a menacing, glowing with a sickly light. And you genuinely believed you could become the Patriarch by borrowing power from a demon? At this, Ayod completely shatters. I never wanted to be the Patriarch, he sobs, screaming out his pathetic, ultimate ambition. I'm going to become a dark mage and travel to the demon world. There, I'll finally be recognized for my talent. But Eugene has heard more. He doesn't even grant him the courtesy of finishing his sentence, instead delivering a vicious punch. A savage uppercut sends Ayod sailing across the chamber, where he crumples to the floor in a broken, bloody heap. But Eugene isn't finished. He relentlessly stomps on his brother again and again, as Ayod can only manage choked screams through his own blood. Finally pausing, Eugene looms over his brother's crumpled form, his eyes blazing with a terrifying new fury. What was that you just said? A Lionheart, a descendant of the Great Vermouth, wants recognition from demons. The tale of how one becomes strongest. Manhwa hides the truth from fools who seek shortcuts. He coolly brushes his hair back, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated contempt. I believe you're fundamentally misunderstanding something, dear brother. Beyond your title as the firstborn son of the Lionheart clan, you possess absolutely no value whatsoever. That cruel truth utterly shatters what little is left of Ayod's spirit. You've been handed a life others can only fantasize about, Eugene says, his voice dripping with disgust, and yet you're still here, crying and whining like a child. He turns his back on the pathetic sight, pulling out his communication device. I'm finished listening to you. You can try your excuses on Sir REBORN. A short while later, guards from the Red Magic Tower materialize. Eugene gestures toward the captured dark mage. Take him. REBORN arrives standing beside Eugene as the guards secure the prisoners. The tower masters face a chilling portrait of cold fury. He glares at Ayod with eyes full of rage and profound, bitter disappointment. Ayod flinches beneath his intense gaze. Red Magic Tower Master. Seeing the clear evidence of the ritual, Ayod descends into a full-blown panic, attempting to deny everything. I swear I didn't do it. I didn't, he pleads with desperation. REBORN's response is as sharp and unforgiving as a blade. But you made the attempt, Sir Ayod, he states, his voice echoing in the desecrated room. You have brought unimaginable shame upon the Lionheart name. His anger visibly swells. You have insulted Lord Gilead, who entrusted me with your education. You have insulted the mages of this tower who taught you, and you have personally insulted me. Ayod tries to formulate another No, that's not what I intended to do. I was only. REBORN's fist clenches, cutting him off mid-sentence. If you utter one more excuse, he sees, I will be compelled to punish you for those insults myself, and believe me, I would relish the opportunity. His voice rises to a furious roar. If you wish to make excuses, save them for Lord Gilead and Lady Theanis, the very people who sent you here. The weight of it all finally overwhelms Ayod and he begins to retch violently, his body racked with agonizing sobs. REBORN turns his attention to Eugene. His expression remains grim. Let us return. The scene then transitions to a grand, formal meeting chamber within the Red Tower. Well, after midnight, REBORN has convened an emergency session. Ayod's parents, the Patriarch Gilead and his wife Theonis, have already arrived. Their faces are chiseled with profound sorrow and a barely contained rage. Reberian's gaze, however, shifts to the door, anticipating one more arrival. With a soft click, the door swings open to reveal a new figure, impeccably dressed in an elegant coat and dark sunglasses that conceal his eyes. He offers a polite, almost serene bow. "A pleasure to meet you. I am Balzac Ludbeth, the esteemed master of the Black Magic Tower." Eugene's eyes wide. Balzac Ludbeth, the living legend who has commanded the Black Magic Tower for decades, and one of the 3 legendary archmages who signed a pact with the Demon King of Incarceration. Balzac glances up, and from behind his dark spectacles, an ominous crimson glow emanates. A subtle, knowing smirk graces his lips as the meeting room grows thick with palpable tension. For Ayad's mother, Theonis, the mere presence of the Black Tower's master is an unforgivable affront. Her eyes blaze with unbridled fury as she glares at him. Balzac remains utterly unflustered, his expression an unreadable mask, as he coolly absorbs her gaze and her hissed words, "How dare you sit there?" Even as Theonis unleashes the full force of her maternal wrath upon him, Reberian intervenes, attempting to defuse the situation. "Please, compose yourself, Lady Theonis," he urges gently. "The master of the Black Magic Tower is not directly implicated in this incident. That is an improper accusation." Theonis slams her palms on the table, her voice a sharp cry. "He attempted to lure Ayad into the dark arts. And you claim the Black Magic Tower is uninvolved? Do you honestly expect me to believe such a thing?" At last, Balzac speaks, his tone as smooth as polished obsidian. "The Black Magic Tower does not govern every dark mage within the borders of Roth." He clarifies that the dark mage in question is an independent practitioner registered with the Mages Guild, entirely separate from his tower. Still, Theonis is not convinced, be that as it may. She begins, only to be cut short by her husband Gilead. The Lionheart Patriarch's voice is low and heavy. "If the Black Magic Tower had no involvement, then for what purpose are you here, Master Balzac?" Balzac leans forward almost imperceptibly to accept responsibility. Gilead's expression hardens with confusion. "Responsibility?" Balzac proceeds to explain the new state of the world. "Centuries ago, learning dark magic was a capital offense, but that all changed when the Great Vermouth forged a covenant with the Demon King of Incarceration. Now, it is no longer illegal. The times have changed," he states, his words aimed directly at Gilead. "Introducing an individual to dark magic is no longer considered a crime. I am present today simply as a gesture of respect for the Lionheart family." Gilead's eyes narrow. "Those are not pleasant words to hear. It sounds as though you are debasing yourself for our family's honor, despite having no obligation to do so." A faint, dangerous smile touches Balzac's lips. "But since I have no desire to make an enemy of the Lionheart family, I am here to accept responsibility." He then outlines the repercussions. "The crimes involving illicit substances will be judged under the laws of a Roth. The denizens of that establishment will be imprisoned, and the succubi involved will face the appropriate sanctions." Theonis interjects, her voice sharp with suspicion. "So, what responsibility are you actually taking?" Balzac's voice drops, taking on a truly sinister edge. "I will personally sever the head of Baron Oler, the incubus who attempted to forge a pact with your son." As if summoned by his words, a delicate tendril of black smoke rises from the candles on the table. Balzac raises a single finger, and a flicker of deep violet flame materializes at its tip. He cradles the flame in his palm, and his voice shifts, assuming a deeper, more resonant timbre. "The Demon King of Incarceration has something to say." Eugene's eyes widen in shock. He feels the immense, suffocating pressure radiating from that title alone. The Demon King of Incarceration. Balzac begins to channel his master, dark, shadowy runes swirling around his hands. The voice that emerges is not his own. It belongs to the Demon King. The Demon King of Incarceration is greatly displeased that the cherished family of Vermouth has been so brazenly targeted. It is for this reason he has decreed that the head of Juan O'Fair shall be severed. The words reverberate in Eugene's mind. The Demon King of Incarceration. A searing rage, 3 centuries dormant, ignites within him. The kind of fury a hero who becomes strongest Manhwa hides until his sworn enemy appears. Gilead feels it as well. A cold rage contorts his face, his personal honor grievously wounded by the Demon King's arrogant claim of ownership. The oppressive dark energy recedes as the chilling display concludes. Balzac inclines his head slightly, stating, "I extend my sincerest apologies once more. While this may do little to quell your fury, I implore you to understand that both the Black Magic Tower and the Demon King of Incarceration sincerely wish to placate the Lionheart family." Gilead says nothing, his expression an unreadable, grim mask as Balzac's. "On that note, I anticipate our next encounter will be under more amicable circumstances." As he pivots to depart, his eyes, concealed by dark spectacles, pause on Eugene for a fleeting moment. The barest hint of a predatory smile graces his lips, a quiet recognition missed by everyone else. Eugene's glare is a return fire, his animosity for the man and the one he serves a raging inferno. It's a look that screams the one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides their true fangs for the perfect moment. Balzac makes his exit, leaving a thick, toxic silence hanging in the air. Gilead buries his face in, his hand, overwhelmed by the crushing weight of humiliation and political duress. Theonis addresses Eugene, her voice tight with strain. "Eugene, forgive me, but would you please give us a moment?" "Of course," Eugene answers, standing without another word. Once they are alone, the delicate truce shatters into a million pieces. Gilead is the first to speak, his tone exhausted. It appears we have made a terrible— Sir Lovelian, this is entirely the result of my own carelessness. Lovelian shakes his head in disagreement. Not in the slightest. It is because I was overly severe with Sir Eward. Gilead's determination solidifies. I am bringing Eward back to the main estate. Theona stares at her husband, horrified. Surely there's no need for such measures, she begs, her voice frantic. It isn't as if he had genuinely succumbed to dark magic. He merely experimented with it. She seizes his arm, her pleas growing desperate. He made a single mistake. He will not repeat it. I am certain he will take this as a lesson and apply himself with even greater effort. Gilead interrupts her, his voice as unyielding as stone. In the 300-year history of our family, the main bloodline has never once yielded a dark mage. I refuse to change my decision. Despite him being my own son, Eward's actions have stained our name. I can no longer permit him to remain in Aroth. Theonis erupts, shouting, but there is no room for him at the main residence. She reminds him that while Eward was struggling, here, his younger siblings were earning accolades back home. A failure like him has no place there. He must be allowed to stay in Aroth. Her sorrow curdles into a bitter accusation. You have done absolutely nothing for him. Your attention was only for that woman, her children, and that adopted boy who shares none of our blood. Gilead regards her, his expression a portrait of profound, tired sorrow. Is that truly how you see it? I provided for all the children without prejudice, he says, his voice strained with emotion. I sent Eward here because he expressed a desire to learn magic. If you genuinely cared for Eward, he starts to say. Theonis slams her hand down on the table, silencing him. She is completely consumed by her own hysterical outburst. You should have— whatever was necessary to make him Sir Lovelian's disciple. If you feared he might go astray, you should have assigned someone to supervise him. Gilead can endure no more. He cradles his head in his hands. Please, just cease this. Stop bringing more humiliation upon our family and me than you already have. His voice is a fractured whisper. Humiliation? She screeches. If he returns to the main estate now, I will be the one to perish from the shame. If you are adamant about bringing Eward back, she proclaims, her voice trembling with fury, then I shall take him to my parents' house instead. I will not permit him to remain in the main house. I would much prefer he master magic at my family's estate, far removed from all this suffocating pressure. Gad remains silent for a long, heavy moment, utterly defeated. If that is truly what you desire, he says to his wife, his eyes clouded with sorrow. If that is what I must also desire, then do as you see fit. Having been effectively dismissed, Eugene walks alone through the tower's darkened corridor. Suddenly, a silky voice slithers out from the shadows behind him. Eugene Lionheart, might we have a moment? Eugene pivots to see Balzac Lebth standing there, that same unreadable, predatory smile fixed on his face, a red glint flashing behind his dark spectacles. The family council had been an unmitigated disaster, and just when Eugene believes he can finally slip away, the one individual he least wants to see in the entire world materializes in his path. The Black Tower Master, Balzac, intercepts him with a slick grin, remarking that the earlier situation was hardly conducive to a proper conversation. Eugene's expression instantly turns to stone, his golden eyes narrowing with unconcealed animosity. A proper conversation with a dark mage? He'd sooner face a horde of demons. A knowing, almost mocking smile plays upon Balzac's lips. He can feel the palpable dislike radiating from Eugene in waves and casually mentions it, as if it were all just a fascinating little game. But Eugene isn't playing. His voice is cold as ice, sharp with a loathing that feels centuries old. He clarifies for Balzac that it isn't personal. He despises all dark mages equally. Balzac simply offers a dismissive shrug, feigning under. He acknowledges that for the last 300 years, the public image of dark mages hasn't been particularly favorable. He then tries to portray himself as an innocent bystander, claiming it's rather upsetting to be prejudged when he personally has done absolutely nothing wrong. With a disarming smile, he effectively says, hate the art, not the artist. Eugene just stares back, his piercing silence speaking volumes. He isn't buying this smooth, manipulative charade for a single second. Altering his strategy, Balzac clears his throat and begins showering Eugene with compliments, referencing his legendary performance at the succession ceremony all those years ago. He continues, touching upon Eugene's phenomenal progress with magic and how he even managed to earn a recommendation to the prestigious Acreon. He has clearly done his homework on him. Balzac then leans in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He claims the burden he just accepted comes with a hidden perk for Eugene. Eugene's eyes narrow with suspicion. He's immediately on high alert, demanding to know exactly what Balzac is talking about. Balzac explains that gaining admission to Acreon is not so simple. A single recommendation from the Red Tower Master is not nearly enough. The other Tower Masters would most likely block Eugene's entry out of sheer, unadulterated principle. And then, with a confident, predatory smirk, Balzac makes his move. He, the esteemed master of the Black Magic Tower, will personally draft a letter of recommendation for Eugene. Eugene remains deeply wary. This is no simple act of kindness. He asks flatly what Balzac stands to gain from this arrangement. Balzac presents his flawless logic. He's interested in Eugene's talent, of course. It's the kind of raw potential that a hero who becomes strongest Manhwa hides until the right moment. But on a more practical level, his relationship with the Red Tower Master is atrocious. So, he calculates that if he champions Rorian's chosen candidate, the old mage might just hate him a little bit less. What's more, he'll create a favorable impression with the incredibly powerful Lionheart family. It's a classic win-win scenario for him. Eugene has heard enough. He cuts him off sharply, If Balzac writes it, he will take it. But he makes one thing perfectly, chillingly clear. This changes nothing to cultivate a friendship. For Balzac, this is an ideal result, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. Simply avoiding any further animosity is more than enough. He claims this was his only intention and begins to depart, offering a quick apology for taking up Eugene's time. Eugene isn't finished with him yet. He halts Balzac's retreat with a final, sharp question. Were you truly uninvolved with my brother? Balzac freezes in his tracks, his back still turned to Eugene. Without even glancing back, he declares his immense pride in being a dark mage, his voice practically oozing with conceit as he elaborates that a subpar mage is a disgrace to their entire craft. The clear implication is that someone as pathetic as Cyan was utterly beneath his consideration, regardless of his prestigious family name. He finally pivots, inquiring if that answer is to his liking. An unspoken warning lingers between them. While Cyan was insignificant, Eugene is a completely different matter. The image of his weeping, pathetic brother surges through Eugene's memory, and his expression twists in revulsion as he turns and walks away, bringing the nauseating conversation to a close. Later, back in the solitude of his room, Eugene sits alone, his gaze fixed on the spoils from this entire a luminous, otherworldly orb pulsing with energy on the table. It's the heart of a unicorn, a priceless artifact of pure, condensed mana, the very same treasure Yod had intended to sacrifice. He recalls his adoptive father, Gilead, presenting it to him, stating that for thwarting Yod's disgraceful plan, Eugene had earned a worthy reward. Eugene is well aware there are numerous ways to utilize a treasure of this magnitude. He could forge it into a powerful item or use it as a catalyst for a grand ritual. For him, however, the choice is crystal clear. He places his hand directly over the heart, a confident smirk touching his lips. Absorbing the mana directly is the most straightforward path forward. He can already feel its immense power. It contains remarkably few impurities, making it ideal for direct absorption. Without a moment's hesitation, he commences the process. A torrent of raw, blue energy erupts from the heart, surging directly into his outstretched arm. As his body becomes saturated with this newfound power, a triumphant grin spreads across his face. With this boost, he's certain to reach the 4th star level before he even turns 20 years old. He lets out a low chuckle. The entire Lionheart clan would collectively lose their minds if they knew. In the last 300 years, not a single member has achieved that rank before reaching adulthood. His thoughts turn to the family's current titans, Gilead and Gion, both masters of the 6th star. Attaining that level solidifies one's place among the most powerful individuals in the entire nation. But Eugene isn't merely aiming for the title of prodigy. He clenches his fist, his eyes ablaze with raw ambition. He knows how this story goes. The one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides their true power until the very end, and he's going all the way to the 5th star. He's going to pour every ounce of his experience as Hamill into the white-flamed formula his rival created to forge a power that surpasses anything the world has ever seen. Just as he's consumed by this intense ambition, the entire atmosphere is shattered. Levelian, the usually dignified Red Tower master, bursts, looking completely unhinged and screaming about a giant's prized jewels costing a staggering 30 million seal. Eugene's face contorts into a mask of pure, unadulterated annoyance. Levelian seizes him, insisting they must rush to the bank before the auction house sells the item to the next person in line. Eugene just wants the man to unhand him. Dragged completely against his will, they finally arrive at a flustered Levelian and an utterly exasperated Eugene standing before the teller. To expedite the process, Eugene slaps his black card down on the counter. The teller's eyes practically pop out of his head. A black card? He's never laid eyes on one in his entire life. The teller's professional demeanor instantly evaporates as he begins to fawn over Eugene, who silences him with a single, ice-cold glare. Number. With the transaction now complete, they exit the bank. Rebarian is practically buzzing out of his skin with a disturbing level of excitement. He informs Eugene that the item will be delivered very soon, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to witness a giant's family jewels in person. The sheer glee on his face is profoundly unsettling. Eugene just stares at him, completely dumbfounded. You seriously expect me to travel all that way just to gaze upon a giant's testicles? Have you lost your mind? But just as he's about to refuse, a new thought halts him. He pauses, hand stroking his chin in contemplation, and after a moment, he lets out a sigh of resignation. Fine, he concedes, let's go. Robarian is absolutely ecstatic, mistakenly believing Eugene is genuinely interested. The man even generously offers to share a piece of the essence. Eugene instantly shuts him down with a cold glare. I'm not consuming any of that. As they make their way through the hall, Eugene clarifies his intentions. He couldn't care less about some giant's family jewels. What truly captures his interest is the renowned red flame method, the signature technique of Gargus, the very man who purchased the grotesque item. He's eager to witness how a different flame manipulation technique stacks up against the Lionheart's legendary white flame. It's a precious opportunity to gather crucial data and accelerate his own journey to power. With that settled, they head back into the bustling main hall of the auction house. Eugene's eyes scan the sea of faces when, without warning, he freezes in place. His entire expression goes utterly blank. Huh? A jolt electrifies his entire being, his eyes widening in pure disbelief as his pupils shrink to pinpricks. He's witnessed the impossible, a secret that even a tale where the hero becomes strongest Manhwa hides until the final act. Without uttering a single word, he bolts. He leaps clean over a stone railing, leaving a completely bewildered Robarian shouting his name in confusion. Eugene plows through the dense crowd, his movements frantic, almost desperate. He pays no mind to who he shoves aside. His mind is a whirlwind of disbelief. Could it truly be her? His heart hammers against his ribs like a war drum. A cold sweat beads on his forehead as startled people cry out while he barrels past them, but their protests are lost to him. His focus is absolute, a razor's edge. An internal voice screams with certainty. There's no way I was mistaken. That ethereal, light purple hair, a shade only achievable by someone wielding a god-tier quantity of mana. His footsteps thunder against the stone floor as he gives chase to the fleeting figure, and then he sees her clearly. In the distance, a girl wearing a witch's hat is walking away, her long, unmistakable light purple hair trailing behind her like a silk banner. The breath catches in his throat. It can't possibly be real. A single name escapes his lips, a ghost from a life lived 300 years in the past, a cherished friend he was certain was lost to time forever. Sienna. The girl continues on her path, completely oblivious to the fact that a living fragment of her distant past is staring at her from across the grand hall. In that instant, his entire world is turned upside down. His heart pounds relentlessly against his ribs as he closes the distance between them. After 300 years of being dead, of believing every soul he ever knew was long gone, she is right here. Sienna, just a few steps away. For the very first time in this new life, he is utterly and completely at a loss. What could he possibly say? How does one even begin a conversation after 3 centuries of separation? His mind races, searching for an answer. She looks exactly the same, perfectly preserved, as if frozen in time by her immense magic. But he is a different person now, wearing the face of Eugene Lionheart. There's no way she would ever recognize him. He can already picture this. Hey, Sienna, it's me, Hamill. I died and ended up being reincarnated as a descendant of our old rival. Yeah, she would probably smack him across the face and tell him to stop spouting nonsense. A small, nostalgic smirk plays on his lips. Yes, even after 300 years have passed, he is absolutely certain she's still just as gloriously foul-mouthed as she always was. He can't wait to find out. Throwing all caution to the wind, he reaches out his hand and calls her name. His hand closes the final gap, just about to make contact with her shoulder, but it passes straight through her. A faint shimmer of blue mana is the only sensation he feels as his hand phases through her form as if she were made of thin air. His eyes widen in profound shock. The world itself seems to warp and distort around him. What just happened? A single, chilling thought strikes him with the force of a physical blow. Is she a ghost? He snatched, his gaze locked on the girl who isn't truly there. No, this isn't a ghost. This is something else entirely. His soaring hope plummets as the crushing reality sinks. This is a hallucination, a projection made of pure magic. She isn't actually here. His hand falls limply to his side, dropping limply to his side. The crushing weight of disappointment is almost too much to bear as he stands there, utterly defeated. The crowd continues to flow past, completely oblivious to the ghost from another life standing in their midst. But just then, the vision shifts. The hallucination ceases to be a memory and slowly begins to turn. Her face materializes into view, her sharp, intelligent eyes locking directly onto his. Eugene freezes, the very air catching in his throat. She's looking right at him. A small, knowing smile begins to form. It spreads across her features, and her lips, shadowed and mysterious, begin to part. She is about to speak, and a single, silent word forms on them. As soon as it's uttered, her entire form dissolves into shimmering blue particles like a flock of ethereal butterflies. They swirl into the air and vanish into nothing, leaving Eugene standing completely alone. He replays the moment in his mind. The silent word echoes in his head, found, and he instinctively answers the unspoken part. Me. A slow, wide grin spreads across his face. It's a look of pure, unadulterated joy, lighting up his features. This wasn't a random memory. She was actively looking for him. She found him. She actually found him. As the last trace of her vanishes, he turns away, a brand new energy coursing through his very being. I found you too, he says, his voice filled with overwhelming relief and unshakable determination. A name, a silent promise, now hangs in the air. Sienna Murdane. Eugene leans against a railing overlooking the bustling street below, his mind racing at 1,000 miles a minute. The conclusion is undeniable. Sienna is alive, and that projection was definitive proof she was actively searching for him. But how could she have known? Did she sense his soul, just as the mighty storm spirit Tempest had, or was there another explanation? He instinctively fingers the red jewel hanging around his neck. Could it be because of this artifact? It all points to a single, staggering truth. She knew he was reincarnated, but the fact that she only sent a mere projection means she cannot move freely. His expression darkens. In a story where the one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides their full power, she isn't hiding. She's sealed. The image in magical chains flashes through his mind. But who was powerful enough to seal her? Was it a prison of her own making, or the work of the demon king of incarceration? Regardless of the answer, her message to him was crystal clear. A fierce, confident smile returns to his face as he gazes out at the sprawling city. You came looking for me this time. So, I'll be the one to find you next. Just then, Robarian finally manages to catch up, breathlessly calling his name. The Red Tower Master looks deeply concerned. asking why he suddenly bolted in such a hurry. Eugene doesn't even bother to turn around. Mind is already occupied with far more important matters. He dismisses the man with a curt, "None of your business," and announces it's time to head back. They soon arrive at Gargus's quarters, where the man himself asks, "You want me to show you the red flame method?" His expression a mask of pure confusion. As a Lionheart from the main family, Eugene is already a master of the far superior white flame method. He naturally asks why Eugene would be interested in their collateral family's technique. Eugene simply replies that he's curious. Gargus just shrugs, saying, "Particularly difficult." He begins to gather his energy, letting out a loud grunt while flexing his muscles with an intensity that seems entirely over the top. Eugene watches on, completely unimpressed. "Do you really have to do all that to use the red flame method?" Gargus insists it's merely a mental ritual to get in the zone, striking another utterly ridiculous pose. Eugene just sighs, yeah, what you've been waiting for." Gargus's demeanor shifts, his focus sharpening as a single, potent flame materializes in front of him. With a guttural roar, his entire form is engulfed in a blazing red aura, as a massive wave of fire explodes from him, saturating the air with intense heat. Gargus stands at the very heart of the inferno, his power now fully unleashed, while Eugene observes with keen eyes, deconstructing the technique piece by piece. The first thing that strikes Eugene is the nature of the core, the very nexus of a warrior's mana, and in response, Gargus begins to explain. He reveals that through the relentless efforts of his forefathers, his family managed to evolve the technique, elevating its star rating to a remarkable 5. He proudly adds that only a select few of the branch families have ever achieved the pinnacle of developing their methods to reach 5 stars. Gargus flexes once more, bragging that he has personally attained 2 stars, but Eugene's mind is already miles ahead, piecing together the larger puzzle. Even for a top-tier branch family, their absolute ceiling is a mere 5 stars, and the fundamental disparity becomes crystal clear. The authentic white flame method was exclusively reserved for the main family. This was Vermouth's ultimate safeguard, the secret of how the lineage becomes strongest. Manhwa hides these power gaps to maintain control. It was a chasm that could never be bridged. Yet, as Eugene processes this, a sliver of doubt lingers, because the Vermouth he knew was not the type for such petty power plays. The story just doesn't fit. His eyes narrow in thought as he recalls considering learning the tech. He'd considered the red flame method, but now, having witnessed its inherent limitations, he sees it as a dead end. With a flat tone, he gives Gargus a dismissive wave. As he starts to walk away, Gargus shouts after him, "You're taking off already? The giant's family jewels are about to be served." Without breaking stride, Eugene offers a single-fingered salute over his shoulder. "You can enjoy that delicacy all by yourself." The scene then shifts, returning us to the Red Magic Tower. We are now deep within the subterranean levels of Eugene's personal laboratory, where he stands alone in the vast, empty chamber, his next course of action crystallizing in his mind. Sienna's last known writings are kept at the Great Magic Academy, Acreon, and the name of her private grimoire echoes in his thoughts. Witchcraft. If her research is truly at Acreon, it is bound to contain clues about her whereabouts. It might even reveal the specifics of how she was sealed away. His path forward is certain. Armed with official recommendations from both the Red and Black Tower Masters, he feels confident he will gain entry. His gaze then settles on the small, luminous fragment hovering in the air before him. It's a shard of the Moonlight Sword. "You've already waited 300 years, he muses, a gentle resolve settling on his features. "What's just a little longer? Won't hurt, right, Sienna?" He positions himself before the levitating shard, prepared to commence the next stage of his grueling training. He is intimately familiar with the sword's power. A mere touch from the complete blade was enough to shatter the very structure of any mana it contacted. This minuscule fragment lacks the power to nullify high-level magic, but a confident smirk plays on his lips. It can still easily disperse lower-level magic, and that is precisely what he needs for the training he has devised. All right then, let's begin. He draws his own blade and projects. He forms several small, yet stable, spheres of pure energy. The objective is deceptively simple. If his own mana can endure direct contact with that fragment without dissipating, a fierce, determined grin illuminates his face as his white flame aura flares to life, then that proves that the unity of my mana can surpass the known limitations of the white flame method. For several days, the Red Magic Tower is rocked by continuous explosions, and a certain young mage is on the verge of discovering the cause. A girl named Mel glances up from her book with a start, asking if the commotion is originating from his private research chamber. A junior mage confirms her suspicion, his face pale with worry. He tells her that for the past few days, there have been non-stop explosions. While Mel listens, her expression growing ever more concerned. Growing increasingly concerned, she finally makes a decision. She will check on him herself. Besides, she has an errand to run. For the Tower Master anyway, it's the perfect excuse. She walks with purpose down the grand, empty hallway, heading straight for the source of all the commotion. Reaching a large, reinforced door, she knocks firmly. "Sir Eugene, are you in there?" Before she could finish her sentence, the entire door was blasted clean from its frame by a tremendous shockwave from inside. The powerful gust of wind sent her hat soaring as she stumbled backward, crying out his name in alarm. "Sir Eugene, are you all right?" But the words caught in her throat as the smoke cleared, revealing Eugene, shirtless and drenched in sweat, his physique coiled with raw power. He crossed his arms, bracing against the force of his own training before letting out a slow breath and relaxing his stance. The room behind him was an absolute wreck. The stone floor was fractured, and a gaping hole had been torn into the far wall. Mel could only stare, utterly flabbergasted and with a faint blush on her cheeks. She stammered his name, asking what in the world he had been up to. Eugene answered with a nonchalance that was utterly baffling given the carnage. He was just training his mana, he said, along with a bit of magic. Magic training, she repeated, completely bewildered. She scanned the demolished room but couldn't spot a single magic circle, which are typically essential for casting any spells. Her gaze then settled on the small, radiant fragment of the moonlight sword, hovering in the room's center. She observed how the walls and floor were utterly shattered, yet that single fragment remained perfectly untouched. To demonstrate, Eugene simply raised his hand. Like this, he stated, as a blazing fireball erupted in his palm. He then unleashed a blistering torrent of fire, a first circle spell that looked far more potent than anything she'd ever seen. Then, with his other hand, he launched a magic. However, instead of letting them travel, he masterfully guided the two spells to smash directly into one another. The incantations collided with a deafening roar, erupting in a massive blinding explosion. Mel watched, completely speechless, as Eugene stood casually amidst the fallout of his own destructive magic. Her mind raced, struggling to comprehend what she had just witnessed. His casting speed was simply beyond belief. And he was using his own mana core as if it were a magic circle, a feat long considered impossible. The way he becomes strongest, Manhwa hides a power so immense. His mana's unity was overwhelming. How could a basic fireball and magic missile combine to be that catastrophic? She had to ask if he was practicing some form of warfare magic. Eugene simply shook his head, clarifying that he was just training the mana itself, and he was finally seeing some real progress. A confident, almost predatory grin spread across his face as he explained that, at first, the moonlight sword fragment would dissipate his magic before it could even take shape. But now, he could compel his mana to cohere, generating an explosion right beside it. He was essentially training his magic to defy an artifact specifically designed to nullify it. Mel's face lit up, her concern melting away into pure admiration. "That's incredible," she exclaimed. She admitted that she'd heard the explosions and was afraid that he might have injured himself. Eugene glanced at her, a hint of surprise in his eyes. "Did you really come all this way just because you were worried about me?" She quickly clarified that the Tower Master also wished to speak with him. Eugene nodded, reaching for his shirt. He asked if Rorian was on the high. Mel shook her head. "No," she replied. "The Tower Master is waiting for you in the Royal Library." His eyes narrowed at the mention of Acreon. We are then shown the capital of Aroth, a breathtaking city defined by its 5 colossal spires. At its very heart lies the royal castle, Abram. The castle itself is situated in the middle of a vast lake, accessible only by boat, as any form of flight was strictly forbidden. Neither carriages nor teleportation magic can breach the lake's surface, all thanks to a colossal, ancient demon sealing circle that envelops the entire lake and the castle within. It was a gift from Sienna the Wise centuries ago, a symbol of friendship whose power has not waned in the slightest. As Mel recounts this history, Eugene gazes at the distant fortress, a single word escaping his lips. Unbelievable. He's witnessing the sheer magnitude of his old friend's power with his own eyes. He confesses that even with what he's learned about magic, the very concept of encircling an entire castle with one permanent demon-sealing ward seems utterly impossible. Mel catches his intense gaze and playfully asks if he's interested in a visit. Eugene quickly looks away, muttering that he was just observing. He's well aware it isn't a place one can simply drop by on a whim. Mel nods in agreement. Only the masters of the magic towers and the absolute highest echelons of nobility are permitted entry into Abram. She then adds that even those tower masters are forbidden from using their magic once inside the castle walls. The only exceptions are the royal family and the castle's own mages, who have sworn an unbreakable oath of loyalty. Eugene immediately grasps the underlying meaning. Does this imply the tower masters haven't pledged their loyalty to the crown? Mel clarifies that their relationship is a mutual cooperation agreement with the kingdom, not a vow of servitude. She goes on to explain that it's the parliament, rather than the royal castle, that maintains a deep connection with the magic towers, which in turn creates a very delicate balance of power. It's not that they're adversaries, she adds with a faint smile, but the political tension is palpable. At last, they reach their destination. Acreon, the Royal Library. It stands as a breathtakingly beautiful structure, a veritable cathedral dedicated to knowledge. As they pause before its grand entrance, Mel turns to Eugene, raising 3 fingers. She informs him that 3 individuals voted against his recommendation. She lists them by title: the Masters of the Blue Tower, the Green Tower, and the Mage Guild. If he can win their approval, his entry will be granted. The challenge has been officially set. She then says she'll be taking her leave, leaving him to confront the council by himself. She glances back one final time, her expression a mix of apprehension and support. "Sir Eugene, try not to be too nervous, and good luck." In response, Eugene offers a relaxed smile and a confident thumb. "Yeah, thanks." With that, he steps into an immense circular hall. Seated in balconies towering above him are the most formidable mages in the entire kingdom, all of them looking down upon him. He announces his presence with a clear and unwavering voice. "I am Eugene Lionheart." First among them is Tremple, the captain of the castle's mages. Next, he spots his sponsor, the Red Tower Master, Rorian Serpis. Then, Green Tower Master Generique Osman, followed by his most outspoken opponent, the imposing and stern Blue Tower Master, Herod Yulan. He also sees the beautiful and aloof White Tower Master, Melkith El-Haya, and his other, more enigmatic sponsor, the Black Tower Master Balzac Lud, whose smug grin hints he knows the classic tale where the one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides his true power. And finally, the last dissenter, the Severe Mage Guild Master, Edgar Gyron. A voice from a central balcony then instructs him to raise his head. The speaker is a young man with a friendly appearance and glasses who introduces himself as Onain Abram, the Crown Prince of Aroth. He remarks that he has been hearing Eugene's name for years now and has long been eager to meet him. Eugene instantly recognizes the name. Hanan is a renowned genius in his own right, the first heir to the throne to reach the fifth circle of magic before even reaching adulthood. Just then, the Blue Tower Master speaks up, his voice booming with undisguised skepticism. He declares he has heard more than enough about Eugene and that the Red and Black Tower Masters have been aggressively championing his cause. He gazed down at Eugene, his expression one of pure condescension. He conceded Eugene's talent but was quick to point out that swordsmanship and magic are two entirely separate disciplines. In his mind, the doubt was palpable. How could a 17-year-old novice who had just begun studying magic possibly merit a recommendation to the prestigious Acreon? He's certain this is nothing but a political spectacle. Roberian is paying a debt to an old friend's family, while Balzac is desperately trying to curry favor with the Lionhearts to smooth over the recent debate. But Eugene has no time for pretense. He cuts straight to the heart of the matter. I understand perfectly. So, what must I do to be granted entry into Acreon? Roberian leans in, outlining the terms of the examination. Eugene is required to demonstrate his magic, which the esteemed and sagacious mages gathered here will then scrutinize. Roberian scoffed, adding that under normal circumstances, a candidate would also need to present scholarly dissertations and research findings, but with a condescending sneer, he presumes Eugene possesses no such credentials. Yet, Eugene stands tall in the center of the grand hall, utterly unperturbed by the condescension. Very well, I shall begin. A golden light flares in his eyes as his mana begins to swell uncontrollably. It's time to show them precisely what he is capable of. With every single eye in the hall locked onto him, Eugene assumes his stance. He utters no incantation, nor does he weave a complex spell. He simply focuses, and a perfect circle of pure, shimmering mana materializes around him, erupting into a torrent of brilliant blue flame. His signature white flame mana bursts into existence, yet this manifestation is more controlled, more exquisitely refined than anything he's shown before. This isn't merely a spell, it's a declaration of power. He stands in the heart of the vast chamber, his strength, a visible, blazing aura, gazing up at the council members who are now leaning forward in their seats, utterly captivated. High above, the Blue Tower's master, Heraduoff, lets out a thoughtful grunt. Even from such a distance, he can discern that something is fundamentally different about the phenomenon he is witnessing. Captain Tremple is the first to voice his disbelief, pointing out the absolute impossibility. A mage's core and their magic circle are meant to be two separate entities. Yet, Eugene is somehow manifesting multiple cores to form the circle itself, a technique that none of them have ever seen or heard of. Balzac leans toward the Mage Guild Master, a deeply satisfied smirk playing on his face. He whispers that Eugene has only been training for a mere 4 years. It's the classic story where a hero who becomes strongest Manhwa hides his true potential, yet has already attained this impossible level of mastery. The Green Tower Master, Generique, strokes his long beard, remaining thoroughly unconvinced. He mutters that while Eugene's control is indeed impressive, it requires far more than raw talent to truly comprehend the profound depths of magic. Down on the floor, Eugene presses on. The blue flames recede, and in his palm, a vortex of wind magic begins to swirl, gathering with a silent and terrifying intensity. Simultaneously, a raging fireball ignites in his other hand. He effortlessly holds two opposing elements at once, perfectly balanced and completely stable. Then, without uttering a single word, both spells dissipate into nothingness. In their place, a blade of pure, sharp energy materializes in the air before him. Captain Tremple can no longer conceal his astonishment. To shift between disparate elements so flawed, without any incantations whatsoever, proves that Eugene possesses an instinctual and perfect understanding of magic's very essence. A sharp voice cuts through the stunned silence. It belongs to the skeptical Green Tower Master. He demands to know if Eugene can wield his magic and his sword aura in unison. His gaze is a direct challenge, pushing to discover just how deep this young Lionheart's talent truly runs. A slow, confident smirk spreads across Eugene's face. This was the precise question he had been waiting for. His hand drops to the hilt of his sword as his own white flame mana erupts around him once more. The Master of the White Tower watches with piercing intensity, a nearly imperceptible twitch of her finger, the sole betrayal of her astonishment. Eugene unsheathes his blade, and in a flash, it's cloaked in a brilliant blue aura, thrumming with contained might. But he isn't finished. In his free hand, he materializes a second sword, this one forged from pure, swirling mana. He now stands dual-wielding, one blade of steel and the other of pure sorcery, leaving the Blue Tower Master utterly floored. The mana circle surrounding Eugene hasn't even flickered. He's simultaneously channeling aura into his sword while maintaining a flawless magic circle, shattering all known conventions of magic. Roberian, Eugene's sponsor, casts a look at the Green Tower Master with a proud glint in his eye, as if to ask what he thinks now. The old mage merely grunts, lost in profound thought. Finally, the Green Tower Master speaks, his tone grave, declaring that they must discuss this development. Rabarion concurs. He calls down to Eugene, asking him to step outside for a time so the council can confer. Eugene gives a simple nod, sheathes his sword, and the powerful aura surrounding him dissipates as though it were never there. His footsteps are the only sound in the now silent hall as he departs, leaving the most powerful mages in the kingdom to determine his fate. The very moment the heavy doors seal shut, the debate ignites. The Blue Tower Master, Herod, immediately confronts Robarion, demanding to know if he secretly mentored the boy. Looking weary, Robarion insists once more that he played no part in it. He explains that Eugene has had no formal teacher. He simply devoured the Red Tower's introductory magic texts and deduced the rest entirely on his own. Herod scoffs, finding this completely impossible to believe. How could anyone possibly attain that level of mastery from mere beginner's books? A new, smooth voice cuts through the argument. It is the Crown Prince, a confident smile playing on his lips. He reminds them of a simple, undeniable fact. He's a Lionheart. He continues, asserting that as a descendant of the Great Vermouth, such a display shouldn't be a surprise. The Lionheart bloodline is infamous across the continent for producing monstrously talented individuals. The prince offers his own assessment, stating he knew Eugene was a genius the moment he entered the room, and then asks what the others perceive. The White Tower Master, Melketh, chimes in. She observes that while the magic was technically first circle, its raw output felt immensely more powerful. Everyone present could sense it. She lauds the purity of his mana and the precision of his control. But what was truly exceptional was its cohesion. It's a core strength that the one who *** becomes strongest Manhwa hides *** so well, and she doubts even a fourth circle dispelling spell could unravel it, but she adds a single, critical note of caution. He is far too young, however. The Mage Guild Master, Edgar, is quick to concur. The boy is a prodigy without question, but his age means there's no need to rush his admission. He puts forth a compromise. Let the Red Tower Master continue to teach Eugene for a few more years. Once he's older and more established, they can then welcome him into Acreon. But Captain Tremple sees the situation differently. He suggests they frame this as a long-term investment. He lays out the undeniable facts. Eugene is 17, a Lionheart, and possesses boundless potential. His skills may not be fully refined now, but they will be. He argues that by showing Eugene favor now, as an individual, they can secure a powerful, loyal ally for Aeroth in the future. The Green Tower Master, however, identifies a flaw in that logic. No matter how gifted Eugene may be, he is still an adopted son. He will never become the Patriarch, the future head of the family. Balzac then adds with a cunning smile that it's common knowledge one of the twins, Cyan Lionheart, is already slated for that position. He casually waves off the other brother, Iod, as a serious competitor, pointing to his recent shameful conduct and overall deficiency in skill. However, Balzac presses on, his eyes gleaming, and states, just because Eugene is barred from becoming the Patriarch doesn't render his position within the family meaningless. Tremple nods in agreement, acknowledging that tradition dictates adopted members must eventually depart from the main family estate. And that, he clarifies, is precisely his argument. When that time arrives, they ought to extend an invitation for him to join Aeroth. If they make an investment in him now, he will become a fiercely loyal and formidable asset for them in the future. At this, Balzac interjects once more, prepared to reveal his trump card. He brings to their attention the whispers from 4 years prior, detailing how Eugene displayed extraordinary prowess during the bloodline continuation ceremony. His voice lowers, heavy with dramatic implication. The Lionheart clan has already acknowledged his immense talent. If Aeroth throws its support behind him, he could very well become the second coming of the Great Vermouth. Hearing this, the Master of the Blue Tower merely scoffs at the grandiose proclamation. Meanwhile, the Green Tower Master, Generique, fixes his piercing gaze upon Balzac. He questions whether those lofty statements are truly his own thoughts. Balzac feigns innocence, asking what he could possibly be implying. Generique, however, cuts directly to the chase with narrowed eyes. He addresses the unspoken issue in the room, Balzac's pact with the Demon King of Incarceration. He demands to know if these are Balzac's words or if they belong to his master. Balzac simply laughs it off, retorting, the Demon King is far too preoccupied with his own matters. Besides, he adds, and suffocating pressure abruptly floods the chamber, emanating from Balzac himself. His smile vanishes, replaced by a bone-chilling whisper. If my master were truly speaking through me, he murmurs, this discussion would proceed with far less courtesy. The unspoken threat lingers in the atmosphere, cold and absolute, as the entire council feels the crushing weight of his power, and just as suddenly, the aura dissipates. Balzac is once again smiling pleasantly, as though nothing had occurred. My apologies, he says with practiced smoothness, I merely meant that my devotion to my master's will is absolute. Tremple clears his throat, anxious to steer the conversation back to its original course. Let's not get sidetracked from the topic at hand. The White Tower Master, Melketh, lets out an audible sigh. Realizing they've reached an impasse, she suggests they simply proceed with a vote. The longer we drag this out, the more bored that poor boy waiting outside is going to become. The Crown Prince concurs, deciding that a vote is indeed the best course of action. Then I shall cast my vote first, he declares, a decisive smile spreading across his face. I am in favor of granting Eugene Lionheart access to Acreon. And just like that, his path is secured. Eugene now finds himself standing before the Grand Pillar of Acreon, where his name is soon to be engraved. This is the Royal Library Acreon, a place that is so much more than a mere collection of books. Every one of its floors is a veritable shrine, housing the invaluable texts and artifacts of legendary mages who molded the very course of history. Eugene gazes around, taking in the names of Aroth's most celebrated figures etched directly into the walls. They call this a library, but it feels more like a sacred museum where the secret of how one becomes strongest Manhwa hides within ancient texts. He's aware that Acreon has 15 floors, and the specific ones he requires, the levels containing Sienna's writings, are located somewhere between the 12th and 15th. The entire purpose of his journey here is nearly within his grasp. Just as he is lost in his thoughts, a bright, cheerful voice calls out, "Hey, kid." He turns to see the master of the White Tower of Magic, Melkith El-Haya, waving at him with an astonishingly bright and disarming smile. Eugene recognizes her in an instant. She is the most renowned spiritualist of her time, the only individual in all of history to command contracts with two separate spirit kings simultaneously. Yet, he was well aware that even without her spirits, she was an exceptionally skilled mage. He had no patience for her games and cut straight to the point. "Is this discussion finished?" "Yes, all done," she replied with a cheerful hum. She elaborated that if they had waited for a universal consensus, the debate would have dragged on for days. So, with a mischievous grin and a single raised finger, she declared they simply put it to a vote. She then laid out the final tally for him. 5 individuals voted in his favor, 2 were opposed, and 1 remained neutral, by a clear majority. Eugene's mind, however, was on a single track. "So, am I permitted to access the upper floors now?" Melkith appeared slightly let down. "Of course, you can. But aren't you the least bit curious about who supported you and who didn't?" Eugene simply replied that it was irrelevant. The decision had been made, and that was the only thing that mattered to him. "How dull," she pouted, before deciding she would tell him regardless. "I was the neutral one." She was quick to clarify that her vote wasn't against him. She merely wanted to avoid being ensnared in a fruitless argument. With a wave of her hand, she indicated the other council members who were still shooting daggers at him. "Just look at their faces. They're all absolutely furious." She predicted that even with the vote settled, they would just find another reason to start arguing about it later. Her eyes drifted to the master of the Blue Tower, who still looked as if he was on the verge of erupting. The man let out a frustrated snort and spun away, making his utter disgust with the result perfectly clear. Melkith then leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Did you catch the Blue Tower master shaking his head?" He was one of the ones who agreed. She found the entire situation hysterical. Quite the surprise. She theorized he intended to vote no, but changed his tune after witnessing Eugene's true potential, the kind of power that a hero who becomes strongest Manhwa hides until the perfect moment. She threw her arms wide in a theatrical gesture and prompted, "So, any guesses on who disagreed?" Eugene, who had long since grown weary of this conversation, stated, "I already told you I don't care." Paying him no mind whatsoever, she revealed it was the Green Tower Master and the head of the Mage Guild. Eugene could only fix her with an irritated stare. "Why are you even telling me all this?" Melkith, appearing genuinely perplexed. "Are you really only 17? Your reactions are just so monotonous." She balled her hands into fists, attempting to elicit any kind of response from him. "Don't you feel any anger? You know, that classic how dare they oppose a Lionheart sort of indignation?" Eugene just offered a deadpan no. He was done with this. "I'll be taking my leave now." As he turned to depart, she urgently called for him to wait. Her whimsical attitude vanished in an instant, her gaze sharpened, locking onto the sword sheathed at his hip as the spectral form of a wind spirit shimmered into existence behind her. "That blade," she said, her voice now laced with an unnerving seriousness. "That's Winned, correct? The sword blessed by the king of the wind spirits." Eugene halted, his hand instinctively coming to rest on the pommel. "It is? What of it?" A wistful, almost desperate expression washed over Melkith. "Well, you see, I've always dreamed of forming a contract with him," she confessed with a sigh, "but he never once answers my summons." Her deep-seated frustration suddenly erupted. "I've tried everything, you have no idea." She had even begged her contracted spirit kings to intervene, but they informed her that Tempest would never enter a contract with another soul. She began to rant like a spoiled child, seething over how the Lionhearts consistently refused to let her borrow the sword. "It's not as if I plan to run off with it. I simply want to borrow it long enough to forge a contract." Eugene interjected, his tone firm and unwavering. "I cannot lend you Winned." He clarified that the legendary blade was not his to give away, as he was merely borrowing it himself. In a flash, her face twisted into a disturbing, manic grin, her eyes beginning to glow with an eerie, unsettling light. My lips are sealed," she whispers, invading his personal space, "just for a little while." She then retreats, attempting to feign reasonableness once more. "It will be quick, a day at the absolute most. You're even welcome to observe." Eugene simply regarded his silence a wall. His thoughts were a whirlwind. He knew from past struggles that the Wind Spirit King, Tempest, was infamously stubborn. For 4 long years he hadn't managed to summon him, realizing his own mana was insufficient. But with the White Tower Master, the sole spiritualist to have contracted 2 Spirit Kings, using Wyniad as a catalyst, Tempest might finally answer the call. An opportunity was forming, but he wouldn't act on it yet. There was no need to be hasty. He understood that if he let her desperation fester, he could leverage it for something far more significant. He deftly changed the topic. How do I gain entry? Desperate to curry favor, instantly beamed. I shall guide you personally. She presents him with an exquisite black card, ornately decorated with gold leaf and the Lionheart family crest. This is an Acreon entry card, he notes impassively. Melkith clarifies, it's merely an identification to confirm your identity. She leans casually against a pillar, a cunning smile on her face. Are you aware this place is teeming with familiar spirits left behind by legendary mages? She begins to list them off. The Mage King, the father of battle magic, and the Great Sienna herself. She adds that their familiars reside here as well. Eugene's face remains an unreadable mask of indifference. You're absolutely no fun, Melkith pouts once more, and here I thought you were particularly interested in Sienna. She reveals that she knows he was searching for Sienna's dedicated floors, that he had toured her former mansion, and had even encountered one of her distant relatives. Eugene is visibly taken aback. How could you possibly know all of that? Melkith just lets out a laugh. I suppose you don't realize it, but the tale of a hero who becomes strongest Manhwa hides his past is making you quite famous. I'm sure it is, he replies dryly, turning to depart. You're quite the piece of work, she mutters, before pressing again. So, when can I borrow Wyniad? You can't. They had reached a pair of golden doors adjacent to a small pedestal. Melkith gestures to a slot on the pedestal. Insert your identification there, and the elevator will open. She gives him a sly, knowing glance. You're heading to the 12th floor, aren't you? I am, he confirms, sliding the card into the slot. See, she declares with a triumphant air. You really do have a thing for her. He just heaves a sigh. I do not. As the elevator doors glide open and he prepares to enter, she calls out, You're not even going to wait for me? She shrugs with theatrical flair. I don't have that kind of leisure time anyway. I wanted to join you, but I figured you might get flustered. She giggles, hiding her smile behind her hand. The shock of witnessing the truth for the first time, it leaves a powerful impression. She leans in closer, her face alight with wicked amusement. Perhaps you ought to bring a spare pair of trousers with you. Eugene can only stare at her, utterly baffled. Why? Her grin widens into something almost manic. You might just have an accident. An angry vein pulses on Eugene's forehead. He has had more than enough of this. He forcefully jabs the button for the 12th floor while she waves him off, still cackling. Enjoy the show. The heavy doors slide. Eugene rests against the elevator wall as it ascends, Melkith's strange warning echoing in his thoughts. The ornate floor indicator ticks past the Roman numerals, coming to a halt at 12. A gentle chime resonates in the quiet space. The doors part, revealing a brilliantly illuminated hall, where a small, robed figure stood in the very center. The figure slowly lowers its hood, revealing a young girl, a remarkably young girl with hair the color of lilac and wide, guileless eyes. She spreads her arms open and proclaims in a cheerful voice rang out, Welcome to Shy's Hall. She looked up at him with a wide, welcoming smile. Sir Eugene Lionheart. Eugene was frozen to the spot, his eyes wide with utter disbelief. The girl standing before him was the spitting image of his old friend, Sienna, just as she was when they were children. Her name escaped his lips in a broken whisper, Sienna. He stared at the little girl, a perfect reflection of his friend from a lifetime ago, and managed to ask the only question his mind could form, Are you Sienna? With a cheerful grin, the girl plopped a massive witch's hat onto her head. Nope, she chirped brightly. I'm the familiar spirit in charge of managing Sienna's hall. Eugene recalled Melkith's words that this place housed the familiar spirits of great mages. So this was Sienna's. He composed himself and posed the next logical question. You called me by my name just now. How did you know it? The little familiar pointed out the obvious. He had just registered his name downstairs. A faint blush of embarrassment crept onto Eugene's face. Ah, right. She then explained that all the familiars in Acreon are connected to the library's magical system, so they're aware of who enters and leaves at all times. What should I call you, Eugene? The familiar puffed out her chest with pride. Madame Sienna used to call me Mur. Eugene's eyes widened as he asked if the name Mur was derived from her surname, Murdane. The familiar, Mur, beamed. Yes, it's a cool and honorable name. Eugene couldn't help but feel a little baffled. Sienna had created a familiar in the image of her younger self and then named it after her own family. What exactly was she thinking? He wondered aloud if familiars were typically this human-like. Mur shook her head, explaining that the others on the other floors looked nothing like her at all. But I'm special, she declared, as a ghostly image of the adult Sienna materialized behind her. My creator wasn't just any mage, and more than that, I was built from Madame Sienna's own personality. Eugene's mind flashed back to what he'd been taught. The creation of life is forbidden magic. He had always thought making a living thing was impossible. Mur's expression suddenly turned serious as she looked at him. I'm not alive, she explained. I don't have a soul, the one thing all living beings possess. My body is made of magic, and my consciousness, she pointed to a massive, intricate orb of swirling magical energy floating in the center of the hall, is in there. Eugene stared at the incredible artifact, completely speechless. What is that? Mur shouted, puffing her chest out with immense pride. She then struck a series of hilariously proud and dramatic poses, clearly relishing the moment. She was obviously enjoying being the center of attention, soaking it all in. Finally, she presented the artifact with a grand flourish. That is the essence of all the magic Madame Sienna created in her life. It's called witchcraft. The name hit Eugene like a physical blow. Witchcraft. The legendary magical text that Sienna had completed right before she vanished. He looked from the glowing orb to Myrrh, utterly confused. But how is that a book? Myrrh just scoffed at him. It's pure prejudice to assume all books must look like books. What kind of nonsense is that? Eugene muttered under his breath, and Myrrh just smiled condescendingly. Of course you don't understand. She tapped her finger knowingly. There's no way you could, not when even the Tower Masters failed to grasp Madame Sienna's magic. Eugene just stared, a single drop of sweat rolling down his face. This was the kind of overwhelming power that a character who becomes strongest Manhwa hides from the world, and he was only just beginning to grasp its scale. This familiar was the spitting image of his old friend. That same unshakable pride, that same condescending smile. He couldn't help but think that she was a perfect carbon copy of Sienna's personality in her youth. He had to ask, did Sienna stay like that until the very— Myrrh simply shook her head. No, she changed. My personality is merely a reflection of her younger years. As she spoke, Myrrh's expression softened, losing its edge. She went on to explain that in her later years, Sienna became far more elegant and refined. She seldom smiled, having dedicated herself entirely to her research. Eugene struggled to picture it, the loud, sharp-tongued Sienna he remembered, transforming into someone quiet and proper. The image just didn't compute. Seriously? He shifted his focus back to the glowing orb. What are you talking about? Your consciousness is contained within witchcraft? Myrrh clarified that her very mind was composed of the spells woven into that artifact. Her sole purpose in existence was to protect and manage a directive she had faithfully executed for 200 long years. With that, she began to walk toward the artifact, and Eugene followed close behind. As they approached the radiant orb, its immense magical presence saturated the entire hall with a deep, resonant hum. He recalled the Red Tower Master mentioning that studying witchcraft made his own life's work seem like a child's scribbles in comparison. This was undeniably magic on an entirely different plane of existence. Turning to Myrrh, he asked, I don't suppose you have any idea where Madame Sienna went after she retired? Of course not. Her reply was sharp. She explained that Sienna's retirement had been both sudden and clandestine. No one knew, not her students, not her servants, not even me. A shadow passed over her face, a clear sign of a painful memory. She recounted how the king, the Tower Masters, and innumerable other mages had relentlessly interrogated her about Sienna's whereabouts. They all refused to accept that she knew nothing. Her voice started to tremble with simmering rage. They must have been absolute fools, because they kept returning every few decades to try their luck again. And then, a dark realization began to dawn on Eugene. They weren't just searching for Sienna. He understands the obsessive hearts of mages. After all, the path to where one becomes strongest Manhwa hides many dark temptations. May have respected Sienna, but with a flawless magical specimen like Myrrh right before them, they would never be able to resist the urge to take it apart. Piece by piece, he quickly changed the subject, asking if all three components of witchcraft were housed here. Myrrh confirmed that this was the original manuscript, but Sienna had extracted the intermediate and low-level versions from it, leaving only the high-level magic within before she gifted it to the kingdom. Myrrh shot him a curious glance. You seem unusually interested in Madame Sienna. Eugene simply retorted, who wouldn't be? A fair point, Myrrh conceded, but you are no traditional mage. She admitted that encountering a descendant of Vermouth from the esteemed Lionheart family had certainly piqued her curiosity. It was, after all, her first time. A thought then seemed to strike her. After she returned to Aroth, Madame Sienna never once met with the Lionheart family again. Not even with Sir Vermouth himself. Those words landed with a heavy thud. Eugene knew from the history books that Vermouth had never reunited with his friends after the war was over. A memory of their old party Sienna, Anise, and Moulin flashed through his mind. The only time they ever gathered again was for Vermouth's funeral. That fact had always struck him as bizarre. Vermouth was never a social butterfly, but to cut off his comrades completely after everything they had endured together, it just never made any sense. He turned back to Myrrh. Did Madame Sienna ever speak of her other companions? Myrrh began to list them off without hesitation. She called Sir Moulin an absolute blockhead and said that Madame Anise was a venomous snake. Eugene held his breath, steeling himself to ask the one question that mattered most. And, what about Hamill? Myrrh's face twisted as she unleashed a string of insults. That idiotic piece of garbage. A small, knowing smirk crept across Eugene's face. I thought you said she became elegant and refined? Myrrh insisted that even the most elegant people could still curse, but her tone softened dramatically whenever the conversation turned to her former companions. She appeared on the verge of tears, especially when mentioning Hamill. Her eyes would lower, and her voice would drop to a mere whisper, looking at Eugene but seeing a ghost from long ago. Hamill's death had clearly wounded her the most. A pang of sorrow struck Eugene's heart. He swallowed thickly, the memory of his own demise casting a shadow over him as he posed one final question. And what about Sir Vermouth? He asked. Myrrh's expression went completely blank. She averted her gaze, her voice suddenly hollow as she replied. Regarding Sir Vermouth, she said nothing. Not a single word ever passed her lips about him, no praise, no criticism, no judgment whatsoever. It's often said that the one who becomes strongest Manhwa hides their true feelings. 1,000 secrets, And for Eugene's old friend Sienna, that smile was merely a mask for a lifetime of profound sadness. Now, standing in the grand hall dedicated to her memory, Eugene and the familiar Myrrh gazed up at a portrait of the great Archmage. Eugene's eyes were fixated on the painting, a jolt of recognition running through him. It was the very same portrait he'd seen years before, hanging in Sienna's abandoned mansion, a piece of her legacy, perfectly preserved through time. But just as the memory solidified, Myrrh gestured towards the painting with a dead serious expression. She informed him that the smile captured in that portrait was a complete and utter fabrication. According to Myrrh, the real Sienna had never once smiled in such a way. Her stark declaration hung in the air, adding yet another layer of mystery to the friend he thought he had known so well. Myrrh then recalled a conversation from long, long ago, back when Sienna was first in the process of creating her. She had been assisting her creator in shaping her very personality. And within that memory, Myrrh, with a child's innocence, had posed a simple question. Why are you leaving behind a smiling portrait when you always seem so sad? A shadow had crossed Sienna's face then. Her expression grew heavy, filled with that deep, quiet sorrow Eugene remembered all too well. Sienna had simply explained that if the portrait was destined to be passed down through generations, a smile was simply nicer to look upon than a sorrowful face. It was a simple, heartbreaking answer, a final act of kindness to a world that would only ever remember her as an image on a canvas. Myrrh then admitted that, being unable to leave Accretion, she had never seen the mansion's portrait with her own eyes, but she had heard it was the very same one. She then revealed the smile wasn't even Sienna's idea. The painter had added it on his own. That's likely the reason Sienna never truly liked the painting. Still, Myrrh's creator had a valid point. It's undeniable that a smile is more pleasant. Eugene stood in contemplative silence, processing this revelation. The thought of Sienna putting on a brave face for history, concealing her profound loneliness even in death, struck him with immense force. Lost in his thoughts, he instinctively reached out to pat Myrrh on the head, a small gesture of comfort, but Myrrh swatted his hand away with surprising swiftness, her face scrunching up in clear annoyance. "Do not cross the line," she warned, her eyes narrowing dangerously. Caught completely off guard, Eugene quickly offered his apology. Myrrh puffed out her chest, her pride clearly wounded. She began to scold him, declaring that despite her small stature, she had been around for 200 years and would not be treated like a mere child. Eager to change the subject, she then gestured around the sunlit gallery. She explained that this place held more than just artifacts of witchcraft. All the magical tools Sienna ever used were on display here. Myrrh pointed to a staff that was floating on a pedestal, telling him this was the very staff Sienna had wielded her entire life. It was an absolutely incredible artifact. The staff was crafted from a dark, gnarled wood, crowned with a massive, pulsating red gem at its very tip. A gentle swirl of pink magical energy envelops the staff, and Eugene's eyes widen with sudden recognition. He knows this weapon. He breathes its name, Akasha.